welcome to yet another edition of Time Pass for the New Indian Express. I have with me the wonderfully talented and so varied in his career, Saif Ali Khan. Saif, thank you so much for joining us. Saif has been a real treasure for the past, 27 years. It's quite amazing. He's entertained us across genres, across platforms. He's reinvented himself, I don't know how many times, and has always been just so delightful to watch on screen. Thank you so much for joining us, Saif, and for being a voice, a very sober and sane voice in these very trying times. How have you really negotiated this whole period? First, of course, I have two messages for you, Saif. I'm sorry, I've not even given you a chance to speak. One is to congratulate you on Kareena Kapoor's 20 years in cinema, and two, to congratulate you for being Taimur's dad. So that's out of the way.
Well, I mean, the former had absolutely nothing to do with me, and the second one wasn't very difficult to produce. It was quite a pleasure, in fact.
I hope so. But really, Saif, you've been such a remarkable actor, and you've reinvented yourself so many times. What have you been doing these last 3 months? Have you been reading, watching cinema? What have you been doing?
Ask me, what have I been doing the last 3 months? My God, it's been literally, well, we try and make some kind of a routine, which has slightly collapsed recently. I think we need a new routine. But reading, I think the most special thing has been spending some quality time with young Taimur.
Yes.
And because one of us is usually traveling or working, and in the lockdown, you know, we've really had a chance to be together without any of us going anywhere, which I think has been the most special part. Apart from that, I've been playing quite a lot of guitar and trying to improve that, and reading a lot, and practicing a bit of language skills. Just, I thought that we shouldn't lose this time. And I mean, there's a certain amount of time you get for personal things in life, at least I do, in between work and family. So the way I'm looking at it is, let's say that we've got all the time now, you know, so we shouldn't waste it. And when this is over, we shouldn't feel that, okay, I didn't do any of those things, you know?
Saif, you read a lot of history. I know you read a lot, and you read a lot of history as well. What does history teach us about the times we're living in now?
Well,
Have we been here before?
Yeah, I think we've been here many times before, and all kinds of things have happened in the past, actually probably much worse than this. So, you know, the things that come to mind are things like the plague, the Black Death.
Right.
In fact, one of the things I was reading was, it's a book called The Decameron.
Right.
Sorry. Which is actually an Italian book, which is, it kind of came before Chaucer, and it was a new style of kind of writing where they would have, you know, they have sort of 10 people who are taking refuge from the plague in a villa in Italy. And to pass the time, they tell each other stories. So that is the format of the book. And they're actually in quarantine, these people, while they're entertaining themselves. So I thought it was quite interesting to be reading that. There's also things like The 1001 Nights, which is another kind of a desperate situation where a woman is, where she's trying to buy time. So she's telling a story that is holding a, you know, her potential murderer's interest night after night after night. So, which is a quite, you know, similar to how I'm feeling. So I thought that would be an interesting thing to read. And things like this. So I think historically, and then there's been memoirs of people who've been imprisoned, who've managed to create some kind of a timetable, you know, to keep themselves sane, whether it's telling stories. And in many ways, we're very lucky because we can divide our time in different ways. You can be a little academic, you can be creative, you can read the things that you've always planned to read but never had the chance, you know, and you can learn things, and the internet is so amazing. I mean, you can brush up on some language, like I said, or you can do many, many things. I think the trick is not to think about too much about the past and not to think too much about the future. But if you take every day as it comes and just, try and do what you enjoy, there's actually a lot to be done. I mean, we've been gardening. We don't even have a garden. We've got a tiny little balcony with a few flower pots on it, but we've been growing things on that. And, I've been cooking a lot every evening. I actually prefer the evenings, I'm sorry to say, to the mornings, because every evening I try and cook something.
Okay.
And I really look forward to that. Oh, everything. I've got quite a wide repertoire now from, we've done biryanis on, with layers, and, done a little bit of Chinese stuff like lo mein, and yesterday I cooked an Asian fish in kind of salmon and soy sauce. So various amounts, there's a healthy chicken, there's some vegetarian food. There's a lot of stuff that I've been cooking every day for about 90 days. So I've gotten better at it.
But actually, you've been a chef on screen as well, possibly one of the first chefs we had in Salam Namaste, right?
That's right.
Yeah, I think at that time, it was so unusual to have the kind of professions that you had, say, in Hum Tum. Of course, you were a cartoonist. We've had cartoonists before, but you were a chef. Then, of course, you played a chef again. So, this amazing ability you have to transition from rom-coms to Omkara to Ek Hasina Thi. How, of course, you're an actor, you can do it, but it was exciting times.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And it's really nice working. Someone like Siddharth Anand back then was always trying to, do something new. There's a lot of energy with filmmakers. I mean, it's one of those professions that has a drive where people are trying. I mean, they're aware of what's happening in the world, and they're aware of what's happening in India, and they're trying to, somewhere marry those ideas. And it's quite exciting because a lot of people I speak to have very fresh ideas and have had fresh ideas constantly. So yeah, it's great. I mean, all credit to them for coming up with, and to us as a film industry to be able to do, a film like Salam Namaste and film like Omkara and all is lucky.
And I think that scene in Love Aajkal will go down in posterity, where you're crying in front of the fire. I think it's, again, one of the few scenes where you actually see a man breaking down on screen and, not being sort of too tied to the idea of being a macho man.
Well, I guess maybe that's been some kind of contribution where, I've had a chance to play slightly more, human, normal characters who are more vulnerable and perhaps not as invulnerable or super successful, or kind of slightly normal kind of guys. So if that's, lent a little bit of something to a pop culture, then great.
Yeah.